Hi there, I'm Louise from Husqvarna Viking UK, and today I'm going to take you on a quick tour of our brand new sewing and embroidery machine, the Designer Ruby 90. So it's the same body as our top of the line machine, the Designer Epic 2. So that makes the sewing area 310mm, that's 12.2 inches, and 5.5 inches high here, plus there's over 3 inches underneath the head, so there's bags of space for all your sewing projects, be you a quilter, a dressmaker, a wedding dressmaker, whatever you sew, this has got bags and bags of space. In terms of the embroidery size, there are 3 hoops with this machine. We start at 120 by 120mm, then the next is 260 by 200mm, but the largest one supplied with the machine is 360 by 260mm. So great for doing big projects. You have to hoop less, you'll get more in each hoop, so that's great. It does also take the Majestic Hoop, which is the biggest hoop we do. Here it is. That's 360 by 350mm, but it's a turntable hoop. So what you do is you sew the first half of your design, then rotate the whole thing 180 degrees, use design positioning just to make sure you've matched up your design in the centre, and do the second half. But it does mean that you don't have to re-hoop, and you haven't got the problem of your fabric shifting in between the two halves of the design. So that's the hoops. The screen size is 10.1 inches. It's a capacitive touchscreen, so it works the same as a smartphone or a tablet or an iPad. You've got Wi-Fi. It connects to Wi-Fi. It does all its updates via Wi-Fi as well. You can do it by USB, but if you can just leave it to do it on Wi-Fi in the background. And it's connected to Mysonet. Now, Mysonet, I'll come to explain some things in more detail later, but you can have a free Mysonet account. You get 100 megabytes of cloud storage, so you can link to all your other devices, your phone, your PC, Mac, iPad, whatever, and you can interchange all your designs between those different devices. We've also got some apps that either monitor your machine, help with design placement. You can take a photograph of your hooped up fabric and actually transfer that to the screen of your machine so that you can then place your design on it where you want. There's a photo app where you can take a photo and convert it into monochrome embroidery and send that direct to your machine via Mysonet. And also our Joyous sewing advisor is in an app as well, so you can actually replicate what you've got on your screen. You can actually have it by the side of your machine if you prefer, or you can use it with other Husqvarna Viking machines. We've got the Mysonet blog here. This is all part of Mysonet as well. Lots of hints and tips, instructions, projects, designs, news, just to keep you abreast of what's going on with your machine and what's available for it, but also to try and inspire you for different projects and things, and that's all free. We still do the complimentary software. You can download that off the internet, but you also get with this a free 3-month trial of Mysonet Silver, and that is our new embroidery software. You can get a subscription for either silver or platinum. Platinum will let you digitize. It also includes the Mysonet library, which it's like a library of designs that you have free access to. It's a bit like having Spotify or Netflix or even Microsoft 365. You're paying a subscription to access the designs, and that's available straight off your machine, but also on your PC and everything as well. So the whole thing all links together under the Mysonet umbrella. Because it's a touch screen, we can drag and drop, we can pinch, we can rotate, we can swipe, we can spread, so there's no stylus, you just do it with your fingers. I'm just going to get the blog out the way, and I'm going to look at the Joyous Sewing Advisor with you, because if you've had Husqvarna Viking machines before and you've been used to the Sewing Advisor, this is like the bang up to date version. So we've still got all our fabrics along the top there. We can pick which fabric we're working with, and we've got our basic sewing techniques, and that's what we used to have with the Sewing Advisor. But we've now also got, as well as basic sewing techniques, we've got collars, hems and edge finishes, necklines, pockets, and all these are built-in instructions as to how to do all these things. So ruffles and gatherings, tucks, pleats and darts, zippers. Some of the speciality stitches we have in this machine, dimensional stitches and embellished stitches, all the instructions are inbuilt in the machine. We've also got, if we look at, that was just the sewing side, if we look at quilting, you've got free motion quilting, how to do binding, how to do applique, how to piece. And if I go into embroidery, I've got basic embroidery, applique, quilting and patchwork, yarn embellished embroidery, and I've got cut work embroidery. I'm just going to go into one of these. It then gives you some choices. So do I want to do cut work and do it with scissors? Do I want to use cut work needles? Do I want to do eyelets? So I'm going to pick needles. It sets the machine up. It's dropped the feed dogs. It's lifted the foot ready for embroidery. Doesn't put the unit on for you though. You still have to do that yourself. But if you look at the bottom here, we've now got instructions that have come up. So this takes you all the way through how to actually do cut work with needles. So there are step-by-step instructions, what you need. There's even videos in here. While you're doing that, you can just minimize that out the way, and it's brought up all the designs that are in the machine that use cut work needles. So I'm going to make this a bit bigger for you. Remember we said about pinching and opening up? There we go, made that a bit bigger. So you, in fact, I'll make it bigger again. There you go, they're huge now. So if you really want to sort of zoom in and look at what you're looking at, you can actually change the size of your text and everything as well. So really clever stuff. If I just minimize that out of the way, I can just drag and drop the design I want onto my screen, move that out of the way, and that's ready to sew. So that's the Joyous Sewing Advisor. We've also got, if we go into Knowledge Centre, we've got the Quick Start Guide, which is all about setting up your machine. So things like using the automatic needle threader, I'll show you that in a mo. Inserting the bobbin, how to thread, how to attach the sensor cue foot, all these things that'll just get you started, to get you running. But we've also got sewing instructions for making some different projects there. An accessory guide, which is how to use some of the more not complex but more involved accessories, so things like ruler work and using the ruler foot. We've got the quilt binder, multifunction foot control, show you that shortly, and yeah, things like cut work, the ribbon embroidery attachment, endless hoop. So you've got a whole host of instructions and tutorials built into this machine. The last thing we've got is the step-by-step workbook, and this is a bit like having a tutor in your machine. So it will show you step-by-step how to do all these different things. Design shaping, how to do embroidery text, how to do design positioning. That's something we get asked to be show people every now and again. So this is all on board on the machine. You don't have to have an instruction book. So let's go to the sewing side. So we've got over 800 built-in stitches, including some speciality stitches that are unique to Husqvarna Viking, which is the pop-up, applique, yarn embellishment, sequin and theme stitches. Plus we've got 5 alphabets in there as well on the sewing side. So if we open up the stitches again, I can make that full screen, and I can make those bigger for you so you can see them. There you go. So that's a whole host of buttonholes. There's 16 buttonholes on here if that's your thing. So we've got categories at the bottom here. We can just scroll across, so I can go into omni motion stitches because this machine stitches sideways as well as backwards and forwards. So the maximum stitch width for a stitch on this machine is up to 54 millimeters. They don't all go that far, but that's the biggest one. So we could put There we go. It shows you your stitch actual size, it shows you what foot to use, it shows you what fabric you've selected, what needle to use, whether you need stabilizer, and you can mirror image vertically or horizontally. You've got stitch width and length, you've got tension, and you've got foot pressure all on your screen. We've also got lettering, so if I pick, for instance, the block alphabet, we can actually type just straight in on the screen. I'll put a stop in there as well. Job done. And that will now sew my name. How quick was that? So really, really easy to navigate around the sewing side and the adjustments on the screen. And if you're familiar, let me go back to a straight stitch here. If you're familiar with the sensor system, you'll know that we've got powered presser foot lift. So that's press foot down. If I put the needle down, it comes up to the hover position, so that I can, if I'm doing a plique, I'm trying to turn tight corners, it's really easy to do. I can just do it by either coming on and off the foot pedal or using the start stop button here. We've then got presser foot lift and extra lift, and if you notice, the feed dogs drop down, so if you're putting something particularly bulky under there, it's not going to catch on the feed teeth. Now I've got a couple of samples here made earlier. They're very powerful, these machines. They will pierce and munch through quite thick pieces of fabric. So there's a couple here I've done earlier. That is 16 layers of denim. So I'm going to put that under the foot because I've got the foot raised at the moment, and I'm going to put my needle down. Didn't have any problem doing that at all, did it? But can you see it's set the pivot height to suit the thickness of the fabric? Similarly, I think that was 32 layers of quilting cotton, same sort of thing. But let me just take that out of there. Let's remember where that was, and let's extra lift to get that out. Let's put just a couple of layers of quilting cotton in there, and you'll see we've still got the pivot, but the foot is much lower than it was with that thicker piece of that thicker lump of denim that we had in there. So it senses the thickness of the thing underneath and compensates accordingly. If we now go to the embroidery side, it's a similar story. We've got over 650 built-in designs in this machine, plus there's an update with over 70 signature designs just for this machine, which that cushion at the back there that was done with the Majestic Hoop, that's one of the designs in there. So let me just get rid of that design. There we go. So everything's on the screen. So we can still access sewing stitches in the hoop actually. So you can bring sewing stitches into your embroidery. You've got lots of lettering, and again, let's make that bigger so you might stand a chance of seeing it. It's quite bright, isn't it? So we've got the 5 sewing alphabets, and then we've got 8 embroidery alphabets in different sizes as well. You know, there's 2 or 3 different sizes in each one. So that's the font menu. If I go to the design menu, again, we've got all the sections along the bottom here, and we can scroll through. So I've got quilting designs, I've got children's ones, some nice monsters, and you know, there's several different categories, ranging from freestanding lace, and you've even got some nice small designs in here as well. When you come on to things like design shaping, the small designs are really useful because you can arrange them in a shape like a circle or a heart, and you can combine different ones. So it's a really nice little thing to have to do a quick design of your own. So that's the built-in designs, and then we've got the library. So this is 6,000 plus designs in there at the moment, and it's increasing all the time. Let's make that a bit bigger. So we've got ribbons and straps are the most recent ones. It'll show the most recent first, but you can search for things. So if I put in here in the search box, let's put in heart. That's really easy, isn't it? So it's now pulling up all the designs in the Mysonet library that have a heart. I'll probably pick one where there are rather a lot. So you can see them beginning to come up now. Yeah, let's load that one into the hoop. There we go. And I can minimise that out of the way. So that's come from the Mysonet library. I can resize on screen and it will change the stitch count. Scaling doesn't change the stitch count, it just makes it bigger or smaller by 20%, and that's the limit. Resizing will let you increase the stitch count so you can actually make it really a lot bigger. Let's keep that. So that's in the 260 by 200 hoop, so you can see that's actually quite large. We can group designs, we've got all sorts of different ways of manipulating them on screen. We've got, we can flip vertically, we can flip horizontally, we can rotate, so we can actually just grab hold of that and twirl it around in a circle, or we can do it 90 degrees at a time using the little wheel in the centre there. And we can pan round, we can zoom in, so I can zoom into the design, or I can really zoom in to almost individual stitches. It's really fabulous. So just like with a lot of the other machines that we've done, the Ruby, the Diamond, our Sapphire 85, you've got things like design positioning. There's a really neat tutorial in the workbook for that. We've got design shaping, where you can actually take small designs and arrange them in a shape. You've got design applique, where you've got simple shapes that you can do your own applique on the screen. It's got basting functions. You can baste around the hoop or you can baste around the design, and it's got the smart save, so you can actually save where you are in your design, and it'll keep every couple of hundred stitches. It actually resaves, so that if you have a power cut or it gets turned off unexpectedly, or if you have a little mishap, you can get back to where you were and continue on. The other thing in here, and it applies to both sewing and embroidery actually, is we've got two different tension mechanisms. So we've got conventional tension, where you've got two tension discs that clamp together, and they basically clamp onto the thread and they resist the thread pulling through, and that's what gives you your tension. But we also have another stitch system called a Deluxe stitch system, and that's actually a set of rollers. And you remember we had the foot that sensed what the thickness of the material was underneath. It will actually measure out the precise amount of thread you need to go through the thickness of fabric you've got, and it's called thread portioning. But it's very, very clever and very useful for speciality threads or awkward threads, things like invisible thread, metallics where they might shred if they're pulled through tension discs. If they're fed through the rollers rather than being pulled through tension discs under tension, then you're less likely to get shredded threads and things like that, or thread breakages. So it also gives you a better finish on embroidery. You obviously need to adjust the tension to the right combination for your thread and your fabric and your bobbin thread, but it will give you a more even tension. So we can use the ribbon embroidery attachment on this machine, so just get the box from over there. So this is the ribbon embroidery attachment, and you can do embroidery with ribbon. That's the unit itself. This is the only size of machine that this ribbon embroidery attachment will work on. So it works on original Epic, Epic 2, and now the Ruby 90. So that's that one. And then we also have, that's out of the way, we also have the multifunction foot control, which you can actually program. So pull that through. So you've got two levers either side. You've got your normal pressing down on, yeah, it's going to try and work. You can obviously press down on it like normal, and then you actually can program the heel as well. So you could perhaps program the heel as like a thread cut or reverse, and you could do a fixed stitch with this side and a cut with this side, or you can just leave them blank. You can have whatever combination you like, but that works with this machine as well. The other advantage is it weighs a ton, so it doesn't skid around the floor all over the place. Very good. It's got sort of rubbery bottom as well. Anyway, so that's that. Those are optional accessories for the machine, but you can use them on here. It's all set up to take those. Right, I think just the last few things, and one of the really nifty things about this, I've got a couple of spools of thread there. Unlike most machines, we've actually got upright thread spool pins on here, and a telescopic thread guide. So we can put cones of thread on here. So it's got like a little base that slots on, and we can put our cone of thread on. You've also got some little holders just to keep them in place, which I haven't bothered putting on for this. I'll just quickly thread this up, and I will show you the automatic needle threader. Okay, so I've gone down, up through the take up lever here, down through at the top of the needle, there's a hook there, and then these guides, and through the thread cutter on the side. Right, that's my needle threaded. Nothing quite so fantastic, is there? So yeah, that's the needle threader. Needs to be used with care. Don't try putting 30-weight thread through a size 70 needle, because it'll break the hook. But you know, for your normal sewing, it's quite, as long as you use the appropriate needle and thread combination, it'll be fine. So that's for upright threads or cones. And if you can see, I'm just going to pull that out. I'm doing it the naughty way. I know you're not supposed to pull them backwards, but you can see that is a cross wound spool. Now we can also put little spools on, but this is a straight wound spool, and normally you don't want them to come off the top like that. You want them to come off the side like that. So what we can do is actually take that piece off. We can lay that pin down, still bring it up through the telescopic thread guide, so it's actually pulling it off from the side, and thread the machine that way, so that you're not introducing twist into the thread. Again, depending on what metallics you use, there might be cross wound, there might be straight wound, so whether you lay them down or whether you stand them upright will depend on that. So that's the upright spool pins. Oh yes, we've also got all these feet. So I'm going to take the accessory box off if I can. We've got a straight stitch plate. When you take the stitch plate off the machine, there is actually a sensor underneath, and it will know whether you've got the straight stitch plate on or not, which is a really good thing, because if you try to do a zigzag with a straight stitch plate on, disaster ensues. So with that, we have a lovely collection of feet there, and a holder for all your bobbins. There's a special hole there just for your manual buttonhole foot, because it has a little spike on the back. So it's got a little hole in the bottom, it must go in that hole. So you've got all those feet. There's 9 there. There's 1 on the machine. We've got the sensor buttonhole foot, and we've also got the sensor cue foot, plus your interchangeable dual feed foot is included with the 2 foot plates, and all sorts of other little, the best screwdriver ever. You've got the guides for quilting and all sorts of things like that. Lots of spool caps. That's the little things for holding your cones straight. So everything's in there, and you've got bags of storage space in that little box. And obviously a lovely great big free arm on there once you've taken that box off. You can also fit extension tables on here. We do a white extension table with an adjustable guide, plus we do a bigger quilt table which is on legs, and again you leave the accessory box off and it just sits around this free arm piece here. One other thing is the bobbins on these are bigger. So if I get a standard size bobbin, so if we think about the old ruby here, look at the difference in size. So they're much bigger than the original ones. And we also do pre-wounds to fit as well for the Epics and the Ruby 90. So if you don't want to wind your own bobbins, you can at least buy some. We've got a separate bobbin winder as well, so you can have your bobbin thread on this spool here. You can still be sewing from this spool here, and the machine can be going, and you can be winding a bobbin down this side of the machine. The bobbin winder's on this side panel here. Also, I'm sure you've noticed quite how bright this is. We've actually got lighting buttons here where we can increase the lighting or dim it. So I'm going to dim it so you can see it coming down in intensity. So you can set it to where you want. That's the dimmest. And let's take it back up in brightness again. And that's the brightest. I mean, there's no shadows there at all. All the way across that arm is totally brightly lit. There is also a little light up in the thread area up here as well, so you can see what you're doing. So that's the machine. I think we've covered everything. I hope you think it's a fantastic machine. I certainly do.